First of all, welcome to the expert learning session on safety and cybersecurity, protecting production, people, and profits. My name is Jay Abdallah, and I lead the Global Cybersecurity Solutions and Services Group here at Schneider Electric. I am going to be your moderator for today's session. I'm honored to be joined by industry experts today from our vendors and from our partners and customers as well. So, we're going to have a brief 30-minute discussion, quick chat, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. First, joining me to my left here is Johannes Eriksson, Chief Information Security Officer for Lantmännen in Agriculture in Sweden, correct?
Yeah.
And then we've got Fabrizio Zucca, who is the Cybersecurity Specialist for SNAM, Energies and Chemical in Italy. We've got Vasilios Floridas, who is the Head of Electrical Maintenance, Automation, and Instrumentation for the Public Power Corporation in Greece. And then we have Dr. Chris Mobley, who is the Executive Technical Director and founder of Blue Sky Tech in the United Kingdom. So we're going to start just by setting a little bit of background in terms of the industrial attack surface today. So first of all, we all know, and we talked a little bit earlier in the room, that the advancements in technologies such as IIoT, artificial intelligence, more interconnectivity is intended to better serve the human workforce in terms of effectiveness and efficiency. Now, obviously, that does introduce a new attack surface or a new attack vector that we have to be very cognizant of. So the accelerated adoption of these new technologies now, not only from a security perspective, but also specifically related to safety, is really trying to combat industrial vulnerabilities whilst at the same time complying with these new regulatory compliance mandates. So that compliance is not just coming from the OT world, but it's also actually coming from the IT world today. And you'll find a lot of discussion when it comes to cybersecurity about the convergence of OT and IT. And you're going to see a little bit of a different perspective today on just how different, especially in certain industry verticals, that convergence is taken into consideration. So we're talking about some of the tools, some of the technologies, on how we can mitigate those risks. So my first question is for all four of you. If you wouldn't mind, just give us a brief introduction about your company and let us know if you are using industrial connected devices today. Johannes, you want to start us off?
Sure. So my name is Johannes Eriksson. I am the Chief Information Security Officer of Lantmännen. We are an agricultural cooperative owned by 18,000 Swedish farmers, and we are the leading player in agriculture, energy, bioenergy, machinery, and food products in Northern Europe. And oh boy, do we have industry, IoT, connected device.
Sounding yes.
Oh yes, we do. Perhaps more than I would like us to have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Johannes. Fabrizio?
Okay. SNAM is a major player in natural gas transportation, storage, and gasification in Europe. It stays mainly in Italy because it owns and operates the national grid for natural gas. And we control this grid from Milan, where it is our central control room, and we can do that only because of thousands of connected devices. A few years ago, SNAM launched the SNAM Tech programs, Tomorrow Energy Company, which aims to go for the diagnostic of pipes and turbines and plants. So we put another network with new sensors and new industrial connected devices to gather the data, to feed the models, understand before we need to put a maintenance in order to prevent incidents and failures.
So also yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
Fantastic. Vasilios?
Hello. My name is Vasilios Floridis. I work for PPC. PPC is the Public Power Corporation of Greece. The portfolio of our company includes either natural gas product or coal, steel, and renewable energy. I'm the head of the electrical maintenance department in a power plant working with natural gas. And also I'm a member of the committee of the cybersecurity committee in the PPC group, that we are now working for the cybersecurity issues mainly in power plants. We are not still using any IoT on our power plant. We are the classical sensors, hardwire signals, all these things working in the power plant. But I'm happy I'm here to listen from the experts.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris?
So I'm Chris Mobley. I'm the co-founder of a company called Blue Sky Tech. We specifically develop cybersecurity products for zero trust architectures, so slightly different to the other guys here. We have quite a lot of IoT connected devices, not for any production, but for testing. So we use them a lot from all the different vendors, and we're trying to see their vulnerabilities and see how we can improve their cybersecurity resilience.
So not in terms of production, but more in terms of testing, so that once you have specific security controls developed for them,
our production is exclusively offline.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Next question is for Johannes, Fabrizio, and Vasilios. So in terms of these cybersecurity controls that are specifically designed for OT, have you found more success implementing these solutions on your own, through an IT partner, or through an OEM? Start with you, Johannes.
Sure. I would say like all of the above, because we have, as in all businesses, I think the pendulum goes back and forth. Like, do you want to insource? Do you want to outsource? Do you want to insource and outsource? And I think from our point of view, we're currently we want to insource this capacity and this knowledge, but we want to do it together with the OEMs and the IT suppliers as well, because they have niche competence that we don't have. We want to have the competence of knowing exactly how it should look like, the architecture, the capabilities that are there, and own it, basically, sit in the front seats. But we need everyone else to do it. So
that makes sense.
All of the above.
Sure. Fabrizio?
Okay. As Yannis said, we too need the support of an external partner. We are currently in a hybrid situation where we got our let's say central infrastructure, which is managed through an IT partner, and we got our peripheral plans that are managed by OEM in terms of cybersecurity. The point is that as we see also yesterday, there is a little bit of stress in cybersecurity due to a lot of solutions, a lot of need for integration. So we are doing a lot of effort to integrate those different solutions. So I think that the key point should be to reach a single or few partners to support this process and the implementation of cybersecurity in order to make easily management during time of the solutions.
Excellent. Vasilios?
Well, we use, as you described, we're in the perspective of a hybrid model, using either an external partner or the OM. In a power plant, we usually work with OM, like we have in our power plant unit. One of two units we have Schneider's DCS, so we are trying to see if the cybersecurity we should implement with the one who has the DCS, the overall DCS of the unit, like the OM. The strategy is hybrid, either with the cybersecurity team of the committee of the PPC, and with the CISO we have also in the upper management. The main plan is to have different security level scenarios implemented with a different physical location and different, let's say, for disaster recovery scenarios in our strategy.
Does that make it more challenging if you've got multiple OEMs running control systems within your facility? Does it make it more challenging from a security perspective to have ownership of those technologies?
I don't know if it's challenging, but if it is risky to say. When you use the OM, we believe, but we have not implemented yet, that OM will be cooperating together. The DCS, which is the main system, let's say, of cybersecurity for us, because we will produce energy, and every anomaly in the grid will come from the signals we have from the field to the DCS. So if the DCS is working well and we have a platform for cybersecurity from the OM, we think it's better.
Makes sense. Sure. Fabrizio, organizationally speaking, who's responsible for safety when it comes to the management of industrial automation systems? And do you take the same approach when it comes to security?
Okay. In SNAM, safety is managed centrally. Okay, we got a direction which is accountable for safety in the plants. They take account of regulations and ensures that the policies are then spread on all plants and so on. And it directly depends by the Chief Executive Officer, Stefano Venier, and they manage all the plants in a standard manner. Then we got some kind of, let's say, health safety environment person in each of the company of the group in order to address peculiarities of the single facility and so on. And then we got a responsibility regarding safety in the single plant manager, which is important. Security is not that far away. I mean, is again centralized and in its own direction. The difference is that is a bit more limited as a center because it was born as, let's say, for the IT support, IT support and the IT protection. Then when we were raising the awareness of cyber risk in operational technologies, we need to start to work with the colleagues from the plants and so on. But we do not have the same relationship or the same structure as safety have. So our challenge now is that to create this relationship, if it is not a functional or organizational dependence, it doesn't really matter. But the mean is to reach a relationship between the people that is in the plant and that works every day with operational technology. That's the part.
Makes sense. Thank you. Johannes, let's switch to you real quick. You've been here for a couple of days. I asked you earlier, so you can certainly tell that Schneider Electric is very passionate about sustainability. So my question to you is, since we all know that digitization is a cornerstone of sustainability and cybersecurity being a fundamental element there, what has Lantmännen done to prioritize cyber or any other subject matter for that matter in order to reach your sustainability goals?
So we're doing a bunch of different things in the sustainability domain. One of the things that we're doing is in the bakeries that we have Europe's second largest bakery group in our conglomerate. And they are using Schneider's Resource Advisor to be able to actually collect the data on their consumption of electricity and water and other kinds of consumption in those bakeries. Not only, of course, to be able to be more profitable, that is, of course, is one of the reasons, but also due to the fact that we are now committing these bakeries to the Science-Based Targets initiative. And they will need this data. It will be a cornerstone for them to actually show that they know their footprint for the STIs, for the scope 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken. So that's one of the data sets that we're collecting, which we in turn, of course, need to actually protect. And I think it's not really that we need to weigh two different things here against each other, sustainability or cybersecurity. It's rather that we want to do this sustainability stuff because we think it's the right thing to do, and we think it might be a niche thing and whatever. And then it means we will have to do the cybersecurity.
Right.
And my job is mainly that of actually explaining what does that mean? What are the risks involved with this? Collecting this data, pushing it up to a cloud provider or whatever it might be. So that's one of the things that we're doing and how we're approaching the security point of view of it. Another thing that we're doing in our agriculture division is that we are collecting data from the machinery. We produce devices or leverage the actual tractors and harvesters and combines and what have you from the vendors, and then we collect data from there, or we supply them with new devices that we manufacture to be able to retrofit that capability to the old machines. And then we collect that data up into our own cloud to use for a lot of different things. One of the things that we can use them for is that we actually integrate into a cloud service that we have created as a joint venture with one of Europe's biggest dairy companies, one of Sweden's biggest meat companies, and then we can get all the data from the farmer's point of view, from when he actually bought the feed from us. He fed perhaps his livestock, and then he sold it to the meat company, or he sold milk from it to the dairy company, and then they can see the actual CO2 footprint of their produce, of their product, and that can help the farmers and us to actually get a premium for the low CO2 emissions that they involve, if we assume that they actually used mineral fertilizer that wasn't produced from natural gas. They used something else. They used feed with low CO2 footprint, etc. And then we can have all that data points collected up in the cloud environment. And that's, of course, something really important to protect, because we need to know that hasn't been tampered with, that we have the integrity of the data still kept, because otherwise who's going to trust us, right?
Exactly.
And then we need to know that it can't be accessible in its details by everyone and so forth. And all those discussions, I mean, they aren't that tough to have if you're able to actually convey the message to the actual risk owners. Like, I know we want to do all these things, but these are the scenarios and risks that we need to take into account. What do we have to have in place then in terms of security controls to actually mitigate those threats?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's a great segue to our next question. Vasilios, we were talking earlier about... Sorry, we'll wait a moment here. We were talking earlier about the convergence that's happening, IT versus OT, and you can clearly see Johannes is mentioning where they can take advantage of cloud-based analytics to make their operations more effective, more efficient. They're doing that. But I was mentioning, I'm based in Dubai, and many of our Middle Eastern customers, for example, still haven't gone down that road of IT and OT convergence. So in terms of public power in Greece, what are your thoughts when it comes to IT and OT convergence?
Well, in a power plant, the main product we produce is electricity. Our main concern is to produce the electricity and distribute to the national grid system. In terms of safe operations, it means that our product, it's not agriculture, it's energy. Okay, we have to dispatch the energy to some certain rules, 50 hertz, 400 kV, and sell it to the grid line. Okay, in our terms, IT and OT it's totally isolated till now because the relevant cybersecurity issues for us, the measurements and all these things coming from the field to a DCS. And the units synchronize according to the protections, relevant cybersecurity rules, that are the electrical protection relays from the generator to the grid. That's how we work. That's how a power plant works. So in terms of cybersecurity, if we are isolated, as we work in our power plant, let's say for 40 years, we didn't have any problem for cybersecurity issues. That's something we are, of course, listening what the market says, what the life says. We heard yesterday about digitization, electrification, all these things. But till now, power plant does not have to upload any data, any signals to a cloud or something like this, because it's not part of the working operation of a power plant. We are not in question marks understand the cybersecurity issues, let's say. But because the time changes, when we will have the obligation to transmit these signals to, let's say, be part of the net metering, all these things, of course, the cybersecurity issues will be implemented to a power plant. Till now, the IT is totally different. The OT does not want to know the OT. These guys don't want to speak to each other. But we are part of it, and our company working on it.
So, Chris, I see you shaking your head over there, and we'll switch over to you, because this is a great segue also. Your company obviously is on the leading edge of developing security controls specifically for industry. Now, when it comes to convergence or the lack thereof, what do you think industrial companies, energy companies can do to minimize safety and security risk? And is technology the only solution?
So it's interesting that you said safety and security, because that duality is one that's being explored in the UK by the NCSC at the moment. So we've all heard of the NIS guidelines, and NIS 2 is coming out. Well, each EU member state has to implement them in its own way, and in the UK they're implementing that as part of the Cyber Assessment Framework, CAF. Now that CAF framework, they are working on equipment and processes and procedures that are going into the critical infrastructure, but they're taking the approach that it must be based upon a safety system. So safety has been around for 100 years, and there's a very well-defined process and procedure for building a safe system. SIL 3, SIL 2, SIL 1 rated system. They're taking those procedures and those processes and they're applying it to cybersecurity. And actually, if you design a high-grade crypto for the US government, for instance, it is exactly the same process. You go through that exactly same process. So principles-based assurance, which is the new assurance scheme in the UK, is based on that. It's based on a safety approach to cybersecurity. So it's a very interesting way of looking at the problem space. So in terms of companies that wish to make sure that they are approved against the NIST regulations to get their insurance and their operating licenses, they will need to have equipment and processes and procedures that are compliant with the latest standards, zero trust architectures, for instance. So that's where we've been working, and it's a very interesting space to work into.
So let's stick with you for just a moment here. In terms of the future, you're going to see convergence taking place, right? And what do you think when we talk about artificial intelligence, which has been a predominant subject in this last day and a half and for the past several years, and the adoption rate as quickly as it is, what do you think is the future when it comes to more integration and risk mitigation at the enterprise level? Is that happening?
Yeah, sure. So I think the future's bright. AI is coming, and we can't stop that. We need to make sure that we haven't got any phantom predictions coming out of AI systems that are happening at the moment, and that the convergence happens in a considered fashion. So we were talking about cloud and connectivity from farm vehicles and all that to the cloud. A good example of that is that the NIST guidelines say that really you should have an on-prem point at which all your services come back to, and then the on-prem point goes up to your cloud. So you've only got a single connection to the cloud rather than hundreds of thousands of connections up to the cloud, because that increases your attack surface. So I think it's very important that we embrace the new technologies that are coming forward. I know it's difficult, but it will happen. But as long as we do that in a considered manner, and that the cybersecurity is taken seriously at the same level as safety, then I think we'll be okay.
Excellent. Thank you for your feedback, gentlemen. Great answers. Let's wrap things up with some big picture thinking. We know that the cybersecurity world is evolving. We know that the attack surface and the specific number of attacks has increased in the past 5 years by 70%. This is not just global threats, right? We're talking about random and targeted attacks. So my question, and I'll start with you, Johannes, if you don't mind, what can industrial companies do to stay ahead of these emerging threats?
I think we mentioned these two, the NIS 1 and the NIS 2 directives, which are from the EU, and they intend to improve the cybersecurity, basically, of essential entities, specific sectors in the EU and outside of EU, UK. I think that's one of the critical things that we can actually go ahead and adopt quickly. Not because it's because it's forced upon us, but I think that's something that will equalize the entire cybersecurity field, the entire playing field of the European Union, because everyone will be forced to actually get on the same level. Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it's been a bit it has been inhibited on the competition, basically, that some businesses have actually done this, improved their cybersecurity, and it's done the investments for it, and others haven't. And until you have an actual cybersecurity incident, you don't realize that's actual
Makes perfect sense. Basically. Makes perfect sense. Fabrizio, what do you think? We talked about standards compliance, regulatory compliance. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, those is like a must, and is a starting point. It's a way for policymakers to bring people to this, as Jan was saying, to the same level. But what I think is that nowadays, as also Chris was saying, we got the way to do those infrastructure in a secure way. We have an idea of the technology we need to push the data from the field to the cloud. We can do it in secure. Sometimes it is expensive, I mean, because there are more infrastructure than what you need to just have a connection. In my opinion, there is also another key word for the future in order to go ahead and face the new cyber threats is awareness. I mean, twofold awareness for the user, for the asset owners, so from the client side, from the people from the plant, to know as they know about safety risks, also as that there are cyber risks. because even if we got air gapped, less probable, we know, but we can have maybe the remote connection, the small router to have some assistance. So if the people which is near the control system knows that, maybe it can be a new sensor, a human sensor for cyber threats. The second fold is technician awareness. I'm not saying that we need all the technicians should be a cyber guy, but if you are configuring a DCS or a firewall in a DCS, you should have that awareness that say, okay, maybe this rule is not that, maybe it's too big to put in the firewall. So on both sides, awareness can do very good steps ahead.
Excellent. Vasilios?
Well, before some years we were talking only for M2M, machine-to-machine devices, smart devices. Now we are talking about IoT devices. I believe that the cybersecurity in some parts of industry, like our plant, becomes cyber. It's a cyber crime if you not just cybersecurity issues in companies, industrial companies, that has also social effect, like the production of energy that may occur to a blackout of a country if something happens. It's a crime, not a cybersecurity only issues. So for the OT and IT guys, I believe two words: staff awareness. It's the key for us to implement these strategies in a company like PPC. The staff awareness is the critical point to imply all these rules, this directive, and to be familiar with what the regulation says.
Yeah, we were given a grouping of statistics when we first started, and we don't like to share, the threat mongering, but the reality is that the two most important for me was, first of all, the increase in attacks over the past 5 years being 70%. The other being that 70%, as you were mentioning, Vasilios, 70% of employees don't have a basic understanding when it comes to security. 70%. So remember, these are the first line and the last line of defense when it comes to protecting our critical national or our industrial automation systems. So Chris, what do you think? What can we do to minimize these?
So that was a good segue into the big elephant in the room, insurance.
Insurance.
So we were talking about this earlier. If you are operating a plant and you have a license to operate the plant, you're at an operating center, you have insurance against catastrophic failure of that plant. But there was a recent court case where the insurance company said, as far as they were concerned, the cyber attack was force majeure because it was by a foreign national state, and therefore they weren't going to pay out. So the problem is how do you get your insurance to operate your system and your plant? The insurance company is going to be the big thing that everybody's going to have to try and understand where they get their insurance from. How are they going to do the cyber attack? How are they going to define that? What is the value? And that's something that everybody's got to get their head around.
Excellent.
The other one is cybersecurity needs to be up the food chain in terms of requirements in the design process and in the boardrooms, because I don't think it's taken seriously enough yet.
Being pushed down from the executive level.
I don't think the executive are taking it. Look, there's loads of problems on businesses, right? Cash flow, geopolitical problems and all the rest of the things. But cybersecurity is up there as a global major problem, and it's only going to get worse.
I think that's one of the key benefits with NIS2 is actually forcing accountability on the board, on the CEO to actually, if something happens, you are responsible and accountable for what.
And we're starting to see that accountability, right?
Yeah.
But what's the penalties, though?
Yeah.
2% of the group turnover?
Yeah, but, all they're going to do,
we'll see.
They'll just put that into a risk bucket and go, right, that's the risk. There you go.
Maybe.
So we are 34 seconds ahead of schedule. I just like to point that out. So we're right on time. I encourage you all to take a peek at any one of our 3 cybersecurity booths in the Expo Center. Yes, we have 3 because we believe in high availability. They're distributed throughout the region. So we're going to open it up now for questions. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir. I think we need to put on our headsets.
I get it all.
Do we have to turn these on, or are they just going to work? Okay.
I think it's these supervisor for the.
Hi, I'm Sasmat Temsh. I'm working for Waterfall. One other thing I'm seeing in another vertical, not in industry, is railways. There will be a new standard, IC 63452. It's not the number that is important, it's the conclusion of it. There will be a mandatory security case like you have for safety case. Don't you think that that's really the way forward to impose stringent cybersecurity requirements? In other words, it's not because a company signs that it's important. It's because somebody will sign in the end and say, it's okay, it's good to go. And that's, in my view, that's the way forward.
Fabrizio, what do you think?
I totally agree that it is important that to force it to have these cases. We got also in the last years several experiments like cyber heads-up. So in order to put, like you discuss, what's happening if this valve will fail? Okay, let's put the same way with a cyber objective. What's happening if we have a manipulation of the command in line? And then also create some kind of mitigations that may be logic blocks or mechanical protection in order to preserve also the assets during operation. So it is for sure a good way to also to enforce and enhance cybersecurity in engineering company, because we work a lot with engineering company, and what I can see is that in general they are not at the level they should be on cyber topics.
Do you want to add anything, Johannes?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really get the question. So
The question is, in railways, if you want a system to operate, you need to do a safety case. Yeah. What they're saying now, you also need to do a cybersecurity case. In other words, somebody needs to sign it.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be the way forward in the industry to say you can only operate in industry if somebody signs the cybersecurity case along a safety case? That's the question.
Absolutely. I think that might be like the third next step or something. I don't think that we are there yet. Some sectors are, and are already there. They need to have some kind of validation. But I think overall, for all the critical sectors in the world, in the European Union, the NIS2 directive is kind of taking the first steps towards that, pushing some accountability and forcing some things. But then later on, I think we'll get there. But yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah, that probably is more sectorial. I mean, because I maybe understood because working with maybe AV engineering on big plants, I was already on the mood. Maybe in those sectors that are related to operational technology, what we will say, with impact that are not explosions or kind of maybe is more far away.
Yeah.
So it's the cybersecurity. So the HSE, Health and Safety Executive, will be the owners of cybersecurity. Absolutely. We're already seeing that in the UK as something that they are starting to talk about. Who is the owner of cybersecurity? Well, at the end of the day, if you can destroy a power plant and it kills people, then that is a safety problem.
Issue.
And so the HSE will own that problem. Then they will be the ones that level fines and remove operating licenses from companies that don't meet the cyber assessment frameworks or NIS2. Exactly right.
So you will probably not find any safety engineers in the bottom line. This goes to the safety engineer.
I think what will happen is, and we're seeing this now, is that the safety engineers will actually become safety cyber engineers, because the two development paths for a safe product and a cyber safe product are almost identical. They are the same thing. I did safety engineering at the MOD and cyber security, and the development systems are identical, and that is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent. Next question. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Hi, you mentioned having your staff trained in addition to working with partners to kind of stay on top of technology as it's changing and, best practices are changing. How does your team do that? How do you make sure you're up to date on the latest standards? What is the way you go about it?
Johannes, I think that one was for you.
Okay, sure. Do you mean my team as in the information security professionals, or do you mean like the entire corporation?
Your team.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a good question, actually, because I mean, I think I can only answer for myself and my team, and we do it differently. We attend these kind of seminars. We listen to podcasts. We read blogs. We read newsletters. We consume a lot of information and I just talked about that yesterday with Michael, that this is such an ever-changing landscape, and it develops from week to week, actually, like how the threats actually develop and what kind of risks and vulnerabilities are out there. So we need, as security professionals, need to stay on top of that so that we can make informed decisions on what kind of mitigational activities we need to do and what kind of information we need to give to the board or the management team. So in essence, that's what me and my team do. We consume a lot of information, and it's not just from government officials or what have you. It's from everywhere.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of time.
You know, you mentioned about keeping up with the latest trends. You know, I lead a global security solutions and services group, which is constantly required to stay up to date with the trends when it comes to security controls. So training is actually a portion of our budget. You see these cyber professionals with an alphabet of certifications after their name. Those are expensive to maintain, and those courses are consistently required. We have to make sure that we stay on the cutting edge. Ultimately, the controls advance as quickly as the landscape advances, so training is so critical when it comes to providing these types of services.
And then we come back to how do we actually get that information, not only to the executives, the boardroom, but also to everyone, all employees, so that they can act on the latest threats or whatever. And then we have the annual trainings, mandatory trainings in the group or whatever you might have. And then we need to tweak those continuously to actually make sure they stay relevant, that this new kind of phishing attack or this new kind of whatever is actually... they are actually educated about this, so they can be aware of the threat.
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
Next question. By the way, I will point out, when it comes to providing training as a service, we found it to be extremely challenging because of that upkeep requirement, that consistency to maintain 3-4 times a year the material that you're providing to your trainees. So it's pretty challenging. Any other questions?
Anything cybersecurity.
Okay, then I think we can wrap it up 5 minutes early. Thank you all for taking the time. Very much appreciate you attending our session today. If you have any more questions, feel free to find us at any one of the booths. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.